Welcome back to another episode of the Jordan Checker podcast where I'm joined by Sam Ackland. Sam founded and scaled Build Clean, a commercial cleaning service to over 100 staff nationwide in Australia, and is now the founder of Alpha Tradie, where he mentors and scales trade businesses with currently over $30 million in annualized revenue under management. Sam is also a father and has been awarded many awards, some of those being the Construction Trade Service of the Year in 2023 and the 2020 Top 40 Under 40 Entrepreneur Award, just to list a few. In today's episode with Sam, we're going to cover a wide variety of topics. This will range from masculinity, toxic masculinity, building and scaling businesses, key aspects and attributes that all leaders should obtain, how your values will change when you become a father, the importance of taking care of yourself both mentally and physically as a business owner, but understanding that ice baths, training in the gym 4 hours a day, and sitting in front of a red light after you went for your sauna in the morning is not the reason why you're going to be successful in business, because the work has to be done. Other topics we'll get into is tall poppy syndrome, how social media and the algorithms are fueling you to believe the world is a different place than it actually is, and much, much more. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe on whatever platform you're listening or watching on, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Now, whether you're sitting on the couch, driving your car, or in the gym, enjoy the episode. Thanks for joining me, Sam. So I'll dive straight in with what's your ideal life?
My ideal life. I believe I'm living my ideal life now. I've spent the past 2 years thinking consciously about it, about the work that I enjoy doing, what I get fulfillment out of. A lot of what I focus on is my deliverable work as compartmentalized into one area of my life. The other two kind of area or pillars are like the family love component and then the adventure, health, and kind of me as a person, or me as a physical being. So I kind of compartmentalize them into three areas of my work, my adventure, and my love, or, love and family. And I've spent a lot of time trying to work out what percentages essentially of my life I require to optimize best in each of those areas. For example, like if I was to spend 12 hours at home with the family every day, then I would have a significant unfulfillment in my ability to deliver in work and my ability to look after myself. So my ideal life comes down to, I think it's like a Tim Ferriss phrase of like crushing a Tuesday.
Yep.
I'm very big on trying to make one day good and then replicating that good day by way of have a good 8 hours worth of work, make at least 1 to 2 hours to work out in some physical sense, get a certain amount of steps, a certain amount of sleep, a certain amount of time with the family. That's what my ideal life looks like.
So how has that changed? So now obviously 2 kids, how has that changed pre-kids, post-kids? How has that changed from Sam when he was in Byron Bay, very young? Your mental, like your mindset around the life you thought you wanted, now living the life that, like, how different is that from the life you
I think
have?
I think there's a few milestones, there's a few changes that happen, particularly around value shifts throughout stages of life, and I'm being very general from my own experience. I believe that in your 20s, and we just call that the pre-kids phase, it's more about tangible material deliverables. It's how big can I get? What are my revenue marks? What do I take home income? Buying houses, investing, diversifying portfolios, all of that kind of big, social media buzzword phrases all come into play because you're very self-orientated. Whether it's a good or a bad thing, you're still nonetheless very self-orientated because you don't have dependents and other people to care for. Then you migrate to kind of your 30s, where you generally have a value change when you do have children or you're expecting children. And that's where your materialistic goals per se kind of change into more experience outcomes, as in, instead of wanting to build a $100 million company, it's more, I would prefer to have at least 2 hours available per day to spend with my children. My children don't care how much money I earn. However, there are some fundamental things I'd like to provide for my children, like private schooling, not having financial crisis within the parents, the mum and dad of the relationship. And I haven't got to the next stage yet when I believe the kids go to school and then both parents decide to really work on what their impact is, or what they want their future life to look like.
Yeah.
So,
where do you think the money term's going to get thrown around a lot? Where money doesn't make you happy, whatever, yada, yada. Yes and no. Where do you think that maybe that line is where that tips over for money no longer provides happiness? Because to some extent, money will provide solutions to a lot of your problems, which makes life a bit easier. Like if your car breaks down and you're like, fuck, I've got no money, or, you can't afford to buy your kids clothes or send them to the nice school, live in the nice neighborhoods. Is there a rough figure or a business lifestyle sort of thing that gets you to that stage where now, there's probably not a huge increase in what money's actually going to do for you as well?
It's an interesting one. It's very specific. It's very specific to the person. I've got a lot of friends who would prefer to have as much time and flexibility as they like with a certain base amount of income. Around most guys I see and most people I talk to, when you get to about the 100K PAYG salary, that tends to be enough for one person to kind of move about the world freely, be able to travel like once a year, to be able to afford to, fix the car when it breaks down, have the medical emergency with a bit of cash surplus. Everything beyond that really depends on the person and what they actually want to achieve. So, you might get a nice house in a nice area. You're happy sending your children to the local school. You've got plenty of time. You might like, doing other activities, surfing or camping or doing whatever it is, where your salary range, just for, a relatable figure, can be anywhere from 100 to 200K. Most jobs, whether you're self-employed, whether you have your own business, or you're working for someone else, you're really not going to exceed the 200K mark. I think a lot of people, and myself included, I didn't really understand that. I thought that it was going to exceed exponentially. Most people get to the upper hundreds, or the upper 100, close to the 200, and you crack into the highest tax bracket over 180. So generally, guys and girls are going to sit between that 180 to 250 or 240, and not take home more income than that. So that's like a good framework to understand that a lot of the younger guys who are like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make $1 million a year and I'm going to be Andrew Tate and rah and buy all these cars and everything. Your better tax advisory mind, or whoever your tax advisor will be, will no doubt keep your income around the 200 mark. So it's good to manage your own expectations there. Whether extra money makes you, well, if there's a direct correlation between an increase in take-home income and an increase in happiness, only if you're aware enough to understand that their money is not a direct reflection of who you are. As in, a lot of people that I know, myself included, try really hard to understand what our output is, which has a dollar figure attached to it, which is a scoreboard essentially. So I often look at my own profit and loss as a scoreboard, not as I want to take home $250,000 a year plus profits and everything else. It's more of, that is a quantifiable measure of my output of time whilst I'm at work. So I think once you do crack over that, 100, 150 mark to the 200 mark of annualized take-home income, you start to shy away or move away from this is me, this is my money, into this is my scoreboard, this is only a part of me. I also like to look after myself and my health and my longevity and my family and everything else.
So you start to then, let's say someone's doing $150,000 a year, job or no job. If you're in your own business, you start to look at maybe ways that you can bring back some of your own time, go on maybe, if holidays are a priority to you, go on more holidays. If spending more time with the family, how you can free up more time and delegate a little bit more, rather than how you can earn more, and understanding that that'll probably come with it as well. If you're in your own business, that's going to imply growth because you're expanding the team, and if you're doing it properly, that's going to happen. But if you're in a job, understanding that if you want more growth beyond that, it's probably still just dashing into your time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's it becomes a trade-off between cost versus delegation versus future return. So yeah.
So how do you then, as someone that has delegated, you build clean to over 100 staff nationally. How did you go breaking that ego barrier to expand and to bring people on and to accept that you're not in first-hand control of everything within a business now anymore?
The one word you raised there, the ego part, gets thrown around so much at the moment. Everybody thinks they're a psychologist without training. I do think it's super important for young guys like ourselves and most of the listeners who are young men, that there is nothing wrong with having an ego and using your ego to drive you forward. I'm using that term openly. Your intrinsic motivation to want to do more and be more and achieve things. That's phenomenal for that period of time. It's when you start to get to, let's just say for whole figures like multi-million-dollar net worth, and you're still driven by the egotistical, materialistic items, which you see as a direct correlation of how good you are. I think that's where that term ego becomes a little bit dangerous. But I do think it's very important for the early days to have a undeniable proof in your own mind that you can achieve what you think you're going to achieve, because most of us, our dreams are a lot bigger than our current reality. And that's where the ego bridges the gap between. So I think you need to be egotistical within a sense, or let it flourish, let it run free in order to get you where get you on the run rate of where you would like to be. But be cautious that it is not your entirety.
So you got to be, ego's good when you're in control of it. And it reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you're a fan of Jordan Peterson, or I absolutely love him. But his quote, like, it's okay to be a monster. It's just, you got to learn how to control that. And I think as a young man, 23, I'm like, that is very powerful to hear, because it's understanding, I've got all this fire in my belly. I've got all this, I don't know, whatever you call it, energy that you want to give out. You want to do things, you want to challenge, you want to not take people on in a physical way, but like kind of break down maybe ways people have been doing things because they can be done better. But it's also understanding that control it and put it into the right use case, which is, like you're saying with ego, it's okay to have it. You just need to know how to control it and use it properly.
Exactly. Yeah. Harness it and put it into the right areas. I think great example, which is very easy to see at the moment in some industry spaces, and you'll know what I'm talking about when I say you see a young guy in his 20s who makes his first amount of money, buys a Lamborghini straight away.
Yeah.
I think it would be a much better way to harness your ego of using it to achieve the cash amount. And instead of purchasing the Lamborghini, perhaps take the path of delayed gratification and reinvest that money either in your company, in delegation, and growing the team, or in some kind of portfolio matter, whatever your investment skill is, as opposed to buying a supercar, which you cannot get insurance for because you're motored out under 25, and running the risk of slamming that $700,000 to $1 million vehicle into the wall.
How many of those do you reckon actually bought the car anyway?
None.
So
We're talking figuratively. But
So
I'd hard and fast say none. Ease yourself in, do what I did, buy yourself a nice Mercedes. You're going to see 63 for a good price secondhand. They still look fantastic and they drive well.
Bit different to a McLaren though. Like
exactly.
Most of those guys aren't.
I think something that a lot of people forget when you're in that early phase, you've got a great trajectory ahead of you. Things are taking off. Things are going well. A McLaren or a Lamborghini is not a very comfortable daily car. The people that you see that have great success that drive around in supercars have other cars that they drive as a daily, because it is very hard to pull into Woolies car park in a Lamborghini.
Yeah, and it's probably not good after a leg day in the gym to get down into one of those either.
Yeah, bucket seats are not comfortable.
I mean, it would be a good problem to have still some cases, but like you said, most people, if you're seeing that, and especially because a lot of people that would listen to this are going to be in that under 30 range as well, is understanding that one, most of those guys don't own the cars. They're probably leasing them, or they're just their friends, but it's also for them selling their courses and all that. It's a very profitable decision to probably invest if that's the path they're taking. Like, it's bit of not a morally great way of going about it, but in their eyes, a business investment, putting a Lambo out front, selling you then their course on how to make money online and e-com, that's probably a good investment in their eyes.
I also think it's been done. If you're listening and that's the kind of trajectory that you're down, find a authentic way that relates to you, that you can show that level of financial competency without having to follow what has been done and is beginning to be tarnished.
Do you think that's changing? Like, I notice a lot of people are getting even frustrated with like short form content, how it's all just like flashy, quick, everything's moving so fast. Everyone's kind of waking up to the fact that it's not really ideal for us to consume that. And now people are going for the podcast route. They're sitting down, a little bit more longer form content. Do you think people in general are waking up to some of those things on social media? Like, whether, for me personally, in fitness, it was people are waking up that not everyone's a natty. And so comparing yourself to that person, the 16-year-old Gymshark athlete that's clearly roided to the gills, is not a natural. So stop comparing yourself to their journey. It's the same sort of thing in all these little aspects. They're like, holy shit, People are like, that's not fucking real.
Yep, that conversation of PEDs, which I've seen you talk about in previous episodes, that that phrase, let's think about it as like a umbrella statement of performance enhancing throughout any of those areas. It's very important to think about who, performance enhancement could be renting the vehicle or renting the house. That could be all put into the same category. I think it's very important to look beneath the covers and see if you can find the long form content to prove that that person is who they say they are.
So how do you then, with what you're doing, say with Alpha Tradie, and you're mentoring and you're helping these guys build up their businesses, how are you approaching not coming off like a wanker, to ensure that you kind of seem like, genuine, from the short period we've spent with each other, genuine person? How do you portray that to these people that you're trying to help?
It's a very tight line to walk because I know that myself, I really do like material goals. I find it very easy to attach, a future milestone within the business, which will be a revenue mark that I can attach a gift or reward to myself. Things like a watch or a piece of jewelry or something that I can wear as an artifact. I have to be very careful about letting that part of me take over too much. But with the work that we're doing at the moment, I'm finding it very fun to not see things online through the short form content and go, I want to create that and I want to do that, because that's something that I was doing for quite a while. It was like, imitating.
Yeah.
I'm finding it very enjoyable at the moment to take the content, create the content, or create the lesson frameworks or the things that I really want to teach and I know well and that I know have worked, and then involving them with my students and our community, and seeing how the data is returned back to us. So even from shooting content very raw, very just, iPhone front camera facing, telling an actual story, as opposed to having the great cuts and the great edits with all the flashy elements to it. I'm finding that even those kind of views and engagement are a lot higher. Then also going to the things that we're actually teaching. I'm going back through the different phases when I was growing, the $0 to $1 million mark. Who was I? Journaling a lot of this stuff. What were the problems that I have? Even going back through my old journals to find out those exact issues that I felt, and then creating our frameworks based around those. And also bringing guys in who are, as our small business mentors, to guys that are currently in that scenario. Their business is doing the $0 to $1 million mark. Having mentors that are in the same process or the same area with their own business or their own side hustle enables them to relate on such a better level. And then building out those kind of teams or that kind of team model is turning out to be a lot of fun. It gives the students exactly a relatable answers or a relatable person, because I see a lot of things. A lot of content, a lot of people, and say take a podcast for example. Someone gets interviewed who's quite successful. They might have a net worth $100 million. The podcaster asks what their daily routine is, and let's take Simon Baird for example. Culture Kings. He's got a wicked recovery set up. I'm quite concerned whether young guys who are creating a clothing brand look up to him and directly see or hear his daily routines and assume that they need to do that in order to be that.
Correlation is not causation.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm very cautious about those different phases, those different styles, and delivering the right message for the right person.
Do you think that then or the authenticity of that as well actually speaks truer to the people you actually want to target? Like it's my previous podcast with Cal Robinson, he's like into marketing and things, and we were talking about Sabri Subi. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with him, but reading his book, How to Sell Like Crazy, and a big thing he tapped on was like no one has a traffic problem. So if you're doing the shortcuts and the wah-wah and, that's how you're putting your marketing out there, these tradie guys are like, what the fuck is this? Like, that's not authentic to your market anyway. Whereas just a dude sitting there talking in a t-shirt and some nice pants, having a chat and talking the language that they understand and doing all those things, they're like, oh, that's actually more relatable. And that's actually a better business option as well. so you're understanding your audience
Exactly.
through that authenticity.
It's funny you say the sell like crazy. I was sitting at our boardroom table the other day. A client came in, great one-on-one client who I work with personally. He's got an awesome business. He does works directly for commercial construction. So he doesn't have anything to do with the general public. He saw the Sell Like Crazy book. It's got a bright red cover if you haven't seen it. He saw it on our library bookshelf and he goes, do I need to read that? Like, I've seen that book. I've seen the ads, love the ads. We had a good conversation about Sabri's messaging and how fun his ads are, the tequila enema type. His first 7 seconds are amazing. And we were talking about, those ad frameworks and the way that his messaging's put together. And the main question from my client was, should I get the book and should I read it? And I flicked it open to the area where it details Facebook ads and Google ad structures and frameworks and said to him, we know your client. Your client is commercial builders. We know how to reach our commercial builders. The commercial builders are a great targeting client because you know exactly where they play. You know exactly what business they are. You know their job roles and job titles. Pretty much all of them are on LinkedIn, so you can find every name to job title to company. We had a good conversation about Facebook ads would be totally irrelevant. Google ads would be totally irrelevant because we know where the people are. So, it's just funny you mentioned Sabri.
And that would be you still wouldn't have a traffic problem if you were contacting and trying to reach people in those positions or those platforms is looking in the wrong place.
Exactly.
Like you're marketing to me who doesn't give a shit about that.
Yep.
You're wasting your money.
Yep.
Like I find it's hilarious when you see ads of some of these products and they're targeting you and like, I don't know why you think I'm going to buy this thing in the first place. Like you
or did you not detail an audience well enough to get me?
I'm like, surely even just click the automated Facebook would be better at understanding where your ad should go than you. And maybe that comes back to another thing as well, is when people should start to let go of different roles and different things like that, is when they're not performing that well, maybe going, all right, I have a decent understanding, but I'm at a level now where I need to start to, delegate some of these tasks as well. So in your time with Build Clean, scaling to over 100 staff, when do you know, it's obviously going to be very different depending on role, depending on where you see your growth, but what are some key things that start to pop up when you're like, I should probably start to delegate or hire and expand the team into a new role?
I love the question. It reminds me of a phrase a good friend of mine, Toby Pierce, told me, managerial ego, and it's always stuck with me, and touching on what we spoke about earlier about ego, knowing when the topic has exceeded your circle of competence and knowing when you should either delegate it to somebody else or outsource it to an agency is a core component of understanding where your managerial ego sits. Something that always pops up to me is particularly with a lot of the kind of target market that, we look at a lot of our community, everybody wants to have the nice flashy office and a lot of our clients or a lot of my students' clients don't actually go to their office. So we always are coming back to talking about how managerial ego wants us to have the flashy office because it looks cool, but doesn't actually add any value to our clients.
Yep.
And we've kind of taken that term throughout a lot of the phases of growth, particularly as you have enough profits to be able to reinvest them in a certain area and using those resources wisely, understanding whether, say, I've got a Bachelor of Business with a specialization in marketing, great title, doesn't really help me when it comes to the marketing space. And knowing, for example, there, when we got to, $1 to $1.5 million in revenue, we can afford to have an agency and take over and relinquish some of that activity from me. I had to understand whether it was my managerial ego that was popping in that would have reservations or hesitations to delegate that, or whether I was acutely aware or aware enough to be able to then delegate those responsibilities. Now, by delegating them, it doesn't mean that we've relinquished all responsibility. The accountability still sits on the person of that particular department, whichever field that's in.
So in that you mentioned agency, why would then someone, devoting a little bit from the initial question, why agency? Why not hire just internally?
Through the scaling up period, I'm big on outsourcing where you can within reason. Now, the outsourcing word gets thrown around a lot for like virtual assistants and that kind of thing. I think there's grounds to be had for things to outsource and things to not. I would like, I usually advise people to lean on agencies for things like graphic design is a very easy one because it's usually a short-term thing. marketing with a specific regard to ads, depending on what that medium is. You can either hire someone in who's a generalized person that sits under the umbrella of marketing who knows a little bit about a lot, or you can hire a media buyer in only meta ads who will produce you the optimal output for that area. So be specific about what you need, who you're targeting, and then get the best person for that specific area. Even if, take the marketing topic because we're going into that, you may have 5 agencies or contractors which do specific needs within your marketing strategy. However, you or whoever the head of marketing area is still has to oversee, collate, and bring all the information together to ensure that it runs in alignment with the marketing strategy.
Yeah. So if you're going, you're like, oh, we probably need an ops manager or something, you're not going to run to an agency to try and find that because like you're trying to fill a role that's going to be there for
exactly
how long.
Exactly.
Whereas those short-term tasks, or in the case, like marketing is not a short-term task, but like it's the chances are if you, I don't know where I heard this, it might have been the All In podcast, I think, which is like 3 or 4 like billionaires who just talk about, especially like AI, that's their big thing. But in the day and age we live in, like if you're, take myself as an example, I don't have the money, say, to just hire. So an agency might be a really good option early days because you could maybe then spend $100,000 a year and have a team of 10 different minds who overall they come together and they work one full-time role, but it's 10 different minds coming together all with an expert, expert knowledge, rather than paying one person $100,000 to work in your business.
Yep.
Once
to do everything mediocre.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So then when you've grown and maybe then you can hire 5 to 10 individuals because the business, like maybe that's never actually a good option for your specific business, but say like a Google, eventually they hired and they just keep expanding their software engineers. You get to a bigger level business. But if you're a smaller business, an agency might be just a better option to have more brains as well.
Keeps it lean.
Yeah.
I think your point on picking who you outsource and who you don't. Marketing agencies are an easy one because you can pick an exact function. You break your company down into how many leads do we need, how much do we convert, at what price do we convert those at. You can then push back to the marketing function and say, we need to derive 20 leads per month through Facebook ads, 20 leads per month through Google ads, and 20 leads per month organically. That's very easy to kind of outsource that function in that particular medium. When you said trying to outsource an operations manager is everything that is the functionality and the business model of your inner workings of your company, specific only to your business, playing on your field. Definitely hire in for that person to run all your systems and processes, and kind of hire or outsource for people to run on another field, which would be, your Meta or your, if your LinkedIn ads or Google ads or whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So kind of like product keeps in-house, product, service, whatever.
Yep.
In that case, then that's where you can start to be like, you can outsource accountants, you can outsource it because you don't need them to see operations on a daily basis. People that need to see what you're doing on a daily basis, you should probably hire them yourself. Marketing agency doesn't need to see what you're doing every single day.
Exactly. Generally, professional services, marketing, accounting, legal, finance, generally.
Cool. And now, so back to the point of, so you've scaled, you've got 100 people. How do you ensure quality as you continue to grow, or even improved quality through that growth period of what those people are all putting out?
Okay, I'm going to run through this really quickly because it starts somewhere and we'll get back to it. So in order to ensure that you grow and scale effectively and increase efficiencies as you go and maintain or improve customer satisfaction, there are a whole bunch of things that come prior. If you're not watching, you're listening, think about, a clockwise rotation. We've got strategy at the top, where we want to go, short-term, long-term goals, everything that is strategic direction and Northern Star type things. Then we have marketing, creating attention, how are we going to find that attention? We have sales, how do we convert the attention? We have operations or product service, how we're actually going to fulfill it. We have people, who are the people that are going to do the roles within the business in order to do everything so far. Finance, how are we going to get paid for it, and reinvest those funds into, or reinvest those resources into turning the wheel further. So, that was a lot. How do we maintain it?
Here we go.
we need to set aside KPIs for every one of those functions. KPIs is a massive term that everyone throws around. It's often people get buried in the marketing KPIs, which aren't necessarily the most important KPIs from a holistic function of the way the business model works. So pick a couple KPIs for each of those elements. There could be 5, 6 different departments within your business. So we want to make sure that we are following in order to maintain our consistency, in order to maintain our service, our quality, our product, and our customer satisfaction. We're going to pick up apart a couple of those key performance terms and create indicators from them. Customer satisfaction is a fantastic one to monitor at scale, because you say if we can refine the model and the product and or service at the moment based on, you know, a percentage score, which we extract from whatever data we can within the business, maintaining or improving that at scale becomes one KPI for your operations, product or service delivery function. And also internally as well, something along the lines of team member satisfaction, some kind of quantifiable culture driver will assist in the overall process of improving the value and deliverables to the customer through customer satisfaction, improving the culture or some form of driver within the team to ensure that we don't lose good talent, so that good talent's retained and good talent trains more good talent in order to better deliver value to the client. And I believe that's how we manage scale.
Sounds about right too. So if you need, go back, listen to that 4 times and put it on slow.
Exactly.
Anyway, but so then you touch on KPIs. So knowing what to measure is very important.
Yep.
Because if you're measuring the wrong things when you're scaling, then you know what gets measured gets improved generally. How do you ensure you're choosing the right things to set as like KPIs?
Let's start by writing a list of vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are very easy for everybody to pull apart. Vanity metrics tend to be like revenue as opposed to net profit or EBITDA. Vanity metrics tend to be like followers or views per reel or average views per reel or click-through rate or average cost per lead. List down as many vanity metrics as you can find. Park that list over, almost put cons above it as opposed to pros. Then we want to, if you've got a piece of paper or whiteboard in front of you, decide what kind of departments there are within your business. There's going to be some form of marketing, sales, operations, people, finance. Decide what those departments are. This is kind of based on Jim Collins' concept of turning the flywheel. It's essentially saying what departments go in what order and what flow throughout the business. Then picking the 1 or 2 core numbers that will tell you whether that function of the business is succeeding, which usually, let's just say for example's sake, marketing may be leads, sales may be average sale value, operations may be customer satisfaction, people, employee satisfaction, finance, net profit. And then we go, okay, well, which one of these KPIs on its own doesn't stand up? And let's take net profit, for example. Net profit would be a pointless KPI to have as a standalone KPI, because net profit of $10, whether it's 50% or 10%, is very different to the net profit of $1 million, whether it's 50% or 10%. So we go, okay, that KPI needs a secondary KPI in order to justify it. So then we go, well, revenue and net profit together formulate a great set of KPIs for your finance function. Leads alone is irrelevant because there's still a conversion rate. So then you'd need some form of conversion rate to sit as a secondary KPI for marketing. For sales, your average sale value could be okay, but something along the lines of conversions, you may decide whether one sits in marketing or one sits in the sales function. If you've got salespeople versus a online VSL or fulfillment process, you see how we're starting to put some hypotheses together of what kind of KPIs we think might work, and then trying to pressure test them. Do they work on their own, or do they need a complementary KPI in order to justify or prove that that is on the right track?
So how important then is, let's take the leads or traffic leads conversion rate. How important is it then to look at traffic leads rather than just looking at conversion rate? Because at the end of the day, you're kind of like, well, I only really care about the people that I get. Like, is it, where does the priority lie? Is that just because you don't want to be wasting money on marketing or something like that? If you've got huge amount of traffic and leads coming in, and you've got like no one converting, you're either messaging is to the wrong people, or maybe you're just the the pitch and the sale in the marketing is shit.
Yeah, the overarching reason for the KPIs, for setting out quantifiable data points, is to prove that we are on the right track. So if we are focusing to prove if we're on the right track, if we are great, continue doing what we're doing. If not, then how do we diagnose the problem? So by having, the 1 to 3, we can go through, like for your example, is traffic the problem? Do we have enough traffic? Looking back on historical data, whether you're going to report on this weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, looking back on data and say, is traffic the problem that's causing us to not hit our revenue target? Then we go back through and go, okay, traffic's not, leads is not, maybe conversions is. This is where we start to extract then priorities for you as the director or leader of the company to go. Adding more money to ad spend doesn't necessarily result in the growth of the company. Looking through the different KPIs and going, okay, potentially we should invest some of our energy or resources or attention into increasing the conversion rate, which means that we don't have to add more capital, which means it doesn't come at more expense from ad spend, and so on. So we're looking at having those multiple KPIs, not only to just measure our success in inverted commas, but also to be able to diagnose what our priorities should be. Because you and I both know we can sit back at our computer after having our morning coffee and go, okay, what the fuck am I going to do today?
Every day.
Every day, yeah. But having whether you're looking at these KPIs on, whatever period they are, daily, weekly, fortnightly, and so on, you could have a quick analysis of, okay, how are we? What is the snapshot of the business performance at this particular time? Can my priorities, or should my priorities be fixing certain areas that are lower than target? Or if everything is on target, where would the lowest hanging fruit be? Would increasing conversion rate produce far more net profit or return for the company than just improving revenue alone?
How do you then, do you think it's important? So I'm early days, I'm building out my business, I'm building out my product. How important is it to ensure that this scale is smooth? Is it to start having these procedures and these steps kind of written down, as per se, so that when someone comes on, they kind of go, oh, this is how we do it. And it kind of feeds into the whole system as well. Does that allow a lot smoother process? Should you be doing that from day one, or is that something
I think it's a really smart thing to do. And the reason I was quite cautious in saying that is I think it's a really smart thing to do to document your simple steps and processes. I think you can very easily get bogged down in doing the wrong thing by over-engineering those systems and processes. Let's say, for example, your company's doing $250,000 annualized revenue, so you're doing 250K. You've got good enough profits. It's just you within the company. You've got a good product to market fit. It would be important for you to be measuring, let's say, a handful of KPIs, somewhere around the 10 on a periodical basis. It would be good for you to understand what are the tactics that could be employed in order to improve those markers. It would be quite unnecessary for you to have 1,000 documented Loom video, 10-point checklists on how to, say for a podcasting example, how to set up the lights, how to set up the camera, who's the right contractor to get to do this. I don't think that would be advisable or the best use of one's time. That said, though, if you do a task, let's say 3 to 5 times, it's probably worth writing a very simple SOP for it.
Yeah.
So that way you are only as you need are building out, okay, I know that I'm going to take on, let's say, just a personal assistant in 6 months' time. Once my 250 revenue goes to 500, then I can afford to pay someone 100K, still keep healthy profits with business and so on. Then you might decide, okay, well, I'm going to invest a little bit of extra time per day or per week in order to refine not only that job role and expectations, but also those accumulating SOPs so that I don't have to spend 2 weeks doing it all at the same time.
I guess you don't want to be too strict on some of them as well, depending on the role and who's going, because they might be like, actually, we could do this better.
Exactly. So there is, I think, to circle back on that, to take a simplistic approach to it without shortcutting it. So if you do need to, if there's something technical that needs to be done that generally isn't going to change too much or too much variance, that's specific to the way your business operates, and it's a good idea to record it. Don't get bogged down in doing non-revenue generating activities if you haven't cracked $1 million yet.
Yeah. So how do you know what's a non-revenue activity? How do you know what's the putting out fire tasks versus the move the needle tasks?
Ask yourself, does this add value to the client? Is a great question, a great framework to run to understand whether the task I'm doing is beneficial to the greater model and moving revenue forward and moving the business growth forward. The reason I'm touching on revenue is because we're generally talking about the $250,000 to $500,000 companies as opposed to the 10. Thinking about, does this activity actually add value to the client, or is this a nice to have but not need to have item? So I think that could be a good framework to run in order to understand what should my priorities be today? How can I move the company forward? What's the low hanging fruit? What are the the one thing that I can do today?
But that's not specific. That's not necessarily saying that it's not a necessary task. It's just not necessary for you. You could hire or you could delegate to someone else. Maybe it is a complete bullshit task. And now the stage you're at, you're like, oh, we don't really need to do that anymore. But a large part of that is generally just understanding when it's time for your role to move up and to delegate that to someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to also, I suppose, to not get in the mindset of I'm above this, I'm beyond this, this task is below me. More thinking about, do I need to do this task in order to better assist our fulfillment, in order to better increase the customer satisfaction, the overall delivery of the product or service? If yes, do it and do it fast and well. If not, note it, save it for somebody else to do. Believe it or not, but as you go through different stages of business and particularly different revenue marks are a good identifier of when you get there. There are times where you'll be in particular sweet spots, depending on your kind of business. Let's say, for example, around $1.5 million in revenue, you've got good profits, you've got a healthy team, you've got people doing the work for you. You will find there will be positions where you will go, things are running pretty good and I don't really know what to do.
Yep.
That's where you could go back through. You might just save yourself a Google Doc of let's just call it shit jobs.
Yep.
You may save yourself a list of just things that that should be done, that could be done, that don't need to be done now. And you've started this list 2 years ago, or you start this list today, and in 2 years' time, you look back on it and go, I might prioritize this list and start chipping away at all the things that I thought would be good things to do that didn't actually add value then. But now that I have the time, I can keep continuing to advance the company forward in the 0.1% drivers forward, as opposed to the 0.1 or the 10% drivers forward that would have been done now.
Yeah. So for the guys that you start working with Alpha Tradies that are, they're profit wise, they're a bit stuck, or, growth wise, whatever it might be. What are some key movers, low hanging fruits for them early days to try and go, we can action this today to start to move ourselves towards, that scenario you just said of, 1.5 mil, a little bit more comfortable, not having to do so much. What are the main drivers early days?
Do we want to unpack this specifically?
Let's do it.
Excellent. So generally the two main drivers to increase profit, let's say, let's do a case study. We've got ABC Electricals doing $1 million in revenue. The director still works in the company, fulfills maybe 25% of the work. So generally they're on the tools a bit. No middle level management. Let's say they've got 4 to 5 team members. It's a mixture of apprentices and qualified tradesmen. They come to me and they say, profits could be better. What should I do? We go straight to the finances, because the finances don't lie. What you lodge to ASIC and the ATO are as they are. So we go straight there. We look at the numbers. What we are looking for is our gross profit margin, and we are going to try and attempt to increase our gross profit margin without changing anything else. And what that means is gross profit generally is all of your materials and labor grouped into one area, as in the cost of the sale. For benchmark figures, it's usually around, the cost of sales is usually around 60%. So your gross profit margin, generally speaking, should be around 40%. Now that's a good benchmark.
So you make $1,000 job, $400.
Correct.
Easy numbers.
Correct. Yep. When we're in that scenario, looking at a company that's doing about $1 million, let's say for whole figures, they're doing $100,000 a month, so a bit over $1 million in revenue. Let's say they're doing $100,000 a month. Every gross profit percentage point we can increase is worth $1,000 net profit. So the game then becomes, what are the levers that we can pull within the gross profit function? There really are two. There's efficiency of the team. Well, two components. There's efficiency of the team, and there's our margin and markup. Efficiency of the team is generally how quick do we get things on site, how well are our systems and processes recorded, and how good is our training system in order for our team to deliver as quickly as possible. Hope we're keeping up. And the other side of it is our pricing, quoting, margin, and markup.
Yep.
So we want to make sure first that we're reporting on them properly. So we'll be putting in, splitting up our billable and non-billable wages so that we're giving everything that is a direct cost of sale into cost of sales so that we can reflect on it properly. We look at historical data to find out exactly where we are. And then we ask ourselves, could the team do more as one hypothesis? And the second being, could we charge more? Generally, the answers to both are yes, but. And then we go on a journey of increasing or removing the but and increasing both sides to find what is the happy medium of we could have better margins but for this particular service, so we're going to potentially adjust our messaging to focus more on that particular area, whilst we're also going to employ some tactics within the team, some gamification processes to encourage them to want to work harder, faster, better, more efficiently, whatever the right term is for the team. Hopefully resulting in increases in net profit due to increases in gross profit.
How are you actually, any business, or any of this advice, you can start to visualize that in any sort of product service. There's going to be some small intricacies that change, but generally speaking, that's going to apply for not just trades people as well. How do you then get the tradies? Let's say you take option A and you go, all right, we can do more. How do you get them to do more? It's, you go up to Johnny and you say, mate, I reckon we can work a bit faster. He's go fuck yourself. No.
Okay. There's a couple of ways we can attack it. First is to pause the podcast in a moment, go grab the book, The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack, goes through the American Steel Corporation or something of the sort, and some scenarios around that. It's a great book for understanding incentivization and gamification for companies. Pause the podcast, listen to that, come back, listen to every podcast from here on.
Key part is make sure it'll come back.
Yeah, exactly. Shameless plug.
You just told everyone to leave.
To the rest. Yes, but it's for the greater good of the people and and the future of their business, and they will come back and listen to the next 200 episodes.
There's more golden nuggets
until we get Elon Musk on the show. Okay, so they will be looking at some ways of incentivizing the team. Now, it's not just money remuneration incentivization. There are other areas where you can bring in, for lack of a better term, corporate bullshit, being company values. And the reason I say corporate bullshit is because the majority of my guys will hear you say, we're going to bring in company values, and they'll just go, get fucked.
Eyes roll. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, exactly. And,
Day off, boys.
knowing our guys, whether they're, gyp rockers or brickies or concreters and stuff, you sit guys of our demographic down and say we're going to work on core values, and they're just going to be like, why?
I don't think there's even I understand. Tradies probably take it to another extreme. They go, this sounds like a bunch of wank.
Yes.
But even people in an office would be like, oh, fuck, here we go again.
Yeah, exactly. But there is an ulterior motive to creating company values, not only to uphold the brand and the way that we want the company to operate, but also to be able for a manager or for leaders to enable them to deliver a non-personal form of feedback, constructive or criticized feedback, that's non-personal, so you can relate it back to the values, as opposed to I feel like, Johnny, you were doing a shit job. You could have a core value, take one from Bill Clean, that's fucking smile. It's our first core value. Instantly you can see that it's very easy to get adoption from the team, given its name, because it's a bit of fun. Everyone has a bit of a smile when they hear it,
and then they're ready to listen to this.
Exactly. But also we can go back on site and say, Johnny, in your mind, you're going to want to say, Johnny, you're doing a shit job, as opposed you could say, Johnny, our core value here is fucking smile. It seems that you're distracting the team by, bringing some form of negativity or whatever the issue is into the work environment. Our core value is fucking smile. It'd be really helpful if you could keep that up. Or we can have a performance review to talk about ways that we can improve the things that you're doing. So you're taking I think you're doing a shit job out, adding the core value in order to give a talking point, almost making it a third person or it's not me, it's the core value that you're disappointing here.
Yeah. So you're not, he doesn't go home and go, Sam came up to me today and said, da-da-da-da. It's kind of like, no. the business requires me to do this in order to keep,
Exactly.
doing
Now, the
what's
beauty
required.
of the core value element is that you can construct them in a various bunch of ways. Usually, there's one around upholding the brand value or the delivery of the product or service to the client. You can have one usually about efficiency. You can have one usually about generalized culture, and then have one or two more. You want to keep them quite simple, but generally you can find one of the core values to provide constructive criticism to any of the team without it coming from a personal, I think you're doing X wrong.
When does enough become enough? You've come to this person, you see this is the opportunity for growth, and we're going to take this path, but this person doesn't want to do it. It's not happening. When does enough become enough? And you go, unfortunately, now this is letting the rest of the team down, so it would be selfish of me to keep this person at play, and we have to look at hiring someone else or moving them into a different area. If
it's
that's
a tough
possible.
one because it depends. It depends on the business size. It depends on the person themselves. It depends on the issues that they're posing for the team. There's some great literature called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which you could review. It's a leadership fable, just about the ways that kind of toxic people can intrude on the workplace. But I think it's important that there's no hard and fast rules of, if you break core value, you're out, because that doesn't factor in what project we have coming up, how far this person is through a particular project. Does the client generally have a good relationship with this person? They could be a star performer and an asshole to the team, but the client really likes them. So for the political component of finishing this project, and that person's the leading hand, we're going to keep them until X in order to fulfill the client's requirement. A lot of what's missing throughout that whole area when you do have problematic staff is a underlying framework for performance reviews, and whatever term you want to use for that, but regular catch-ups with team to find out how they're doing, and also to give them any kind of pro or con feedback. So I think that's usually missing, because a lot of people think, I've got a problem guy, now I need to have my first performance conversation with them about how bad they're doing. It's a lot easier to have a monthly or quarterly framework where you catch up with your guys for a coffee for 10 minutes. Say you've got 5 guys in your team. Every quarter, you catch up with one of them for 10 minutes. So they've got a later start on site, have a coffee with them first thing in the morning, that kind of thing. Gives you an opportunity to give credit where credit's due, but also fix any kind of loose bolts on the way through.
So you're kind of initially looking at, let's look in the mirror first, rather than looking through the window, in the fact of, I'm going to look at what I could improve first. If I improve what I believe is what I can improve, and this person's still doing this, then you start to go, maybe something needs to be done.
Exactly. But to loop back to when do you get rid of someone? It depends.
Yeah. Famous saying.
Sorry, I can't help you, but it depends.
If you hadn't told me that you knew Toby, the amount of Toby Pierce podcasts I've listened to, and he says it depends, I'm like, you've spoken to Toby. Like, because it's a famous answer. Like, and it's business, it's life, it's everything. I mean, we can try and
exactly, and it's how much context is available to answer the question. Is probably the more depth, the backing behind it depends.
I guess like there's always it's no different to in your life, I guess, in general. If one person is absolutely tearing your whole life down and ruining the other 10 connections in your life, then you probably need to do something about it, because otherwise you're letting other people down as well. Like if that's the difference between, we will go out of business because this person is destroying it, like that's a bit different to we're not quite as effective because of this, but other things are also going well with this person.
Exactly. And then you're starting to draw out priority levels between what is a crisis and what is a tune-up.
So what, in terms of then scale, for Tradie specifically, it's very much it's not local. You don't have to be limited your specific area. Let's say you're based in Glenelg, you don't have to just reach people in Glenelg, but you're not getting people in, the United States. It's a little bit, and even then,
it's very hard to install the new aircon unit for somebody in
exactly
Florida.
I mean, robotics,
as it is
not long maybe.
To West Beach.
So what you mentioned Facebook ads versus Google ads versus this. Where if someone is very much a local based business, should they be looking to promote and market themselves?
I'm not going to say exactly what medium would be best because it depends.
Yeah.
However, I think there's some important frameworks. There's some important frameworks that you can run, looking particularly, not only at your ideal client, your ideal target market, but also what kind of clusters those particular people or those particular personas congregate in, and then working out what are the tactics that could be employed to target those particular congregations. Let's say let's pick somewhere around the country. Let's say everybody knows the Gold Coast. Let's say you're an electrician on the Gold Coast, and you service only retail, or you service only commercial clients, commercial being, industrial estates, that kind of thing. You would find ways of, you'd list out a bunch of tactics in which tactics being things that I could do in order to achieve desired outcome, being leads or work or revenue or sales. What's the list of tactics that I could do? Almost hypothesizing, working out what do I think the general costs are going to be. So let's just say for this particular area, you're an electrician on the Gold Coast, you target commercial clients, you go to Southport Industrial Estate. In your mind, or at the top of your list, you've got Southport Industrial Estate. There are several tactics you can do. You could do Facebook ads, you could do LinkedIn ads, you could do Google ads. As far as your advertising, organics hard to measure, and we're not going to understand whether we got much out of that. We could do direct site visits. We could do Google My Business Directory list scraping. There's a bunch of tactics that we could do. Then we could say, okay, what's the time requirement for that? Time and or cost. So time being, if I'm going to personally deliver or site visit to these industrial estates, on average, I might be able to visit one site per hour. Let's say there's 200 there. It's going to be 200 hours to complete the task. Let's go jump back up to one of the ads. There's going to be a ads learning phase, which can be time and money. So it's going to maybe take 3 months for the ads to, learn the audience and that kind of thing. You also need to pay the agency fee for that. You also need the content. Then you need the ad spend. What is the accumulated value of that versus the accumulated value of going to visit them on site? Is time a priority? Do I need it done now or do I need it done later? And do I have the time to do it? Do I have the money to be able to do either or? And you start to get almost a checklist across a spreadsheet of it is a lot cheaper, but more time consuming for me to do this particular task. However, and the urgency is high. So I should do this first and then do that. If you've got the capital to do both, run both at the same time. I hope that answers how we target somebody.
It depends. No, it makes sense. Like it's, for all in all, is understanding your audience is the simplest thing that you should focus on at the start of a marketing sort of. Where are they hanging out? Is a good place to start.
Yep.
And start to unravel from there.
Turn off any other influence. Nobody knows your company like you. Nobody cares about your company, by the way, in case you didn't know. Nobody cares about it as much as you do. Generally, nobody cares at all. So turn off every other stimulus and information coming in, turn it all off, sit down with a piece of paper, go, who are the people that I want to work with? What are the highest profit jobs that I can do for the particular person? We're starting to understand exactly what we want to do. Now think about where they play. Residential builders is a great example of where do they play. Residential builders typically only play on Instagram.
Yep.
All of their showcasing, all of their work, yes, they're backed up by their website and they've got to Google My Business and they do their own ads to get their clients in. Most of their flexing is done on Instagram. So you would say, I service residential builders. These are all the ways that I could get to them. They play on Instagram. What are the tactics I could do in Instagram at a cost and time basis? Do those first.
Switching out of marketing a little bit.
Please.
A lot of people, a lot of people get into business. They see a problem. They create a product or service to solve it. Tradies, a lot of people, they start as an apprentice, they build their way up, and then they go, I could probably make more money if I ran my own sort of business. A lot of people don't know how to run a business though. So what are, even before they come to a stage where they're even maybe reaching out to someone like yourself to get that help, to get that mentorship as well, what do you think were some, looking back, key things you would have really liked to put on the forefront of learning when you first went into business? Because I look at myself with what I'm doing now, it's all about product, because without a product, marketing doesn't matter because I can't sell anything. But you've got your product, you've got your service, where to now?
I think even before we've got our product and we've got our service, when you're thinking about, let's just say the trade example is easy. You're a qualified tradesperson, you're working for somebody else. It's a good company. You've been there for 4 years. You did your apprenticeship with them. I think it's good to go introspective talk to yourself, establish with yourself, what do you really want to achieve in the future? Is work-life balance with a little bit of leadership or managerial responsibility and a decent take-home package with relatively low stress, is that your ideal life? Now, you can still own your own house, have a couple of investment properties. There's still plenty of, potential take-home income that can be produced from that framework without having to go into the exceptional stress, but also equal fulfillment if you can achieve it, to go and do it all yourself. So I think a lot of people miss that and just think, I'm working for someone else, I'm getting paid. And this is a very good example. And if you think like this is a great opportunity for you to establish, if you are this character profile, thinking about how much you get paid per hour from your employer and then going, I couldn't get paid more per hour doing it myself. I think there's a fundamental way or a fundamental identifier that you are thinking in an employee mindset as opposed to an employer mindset. And if you are thinking about that, about how much you get paid per hour, you are failing to think about if you're billing out at $100 per hour, what are your cost of sales? What is your gross profit? What is your net profit? Does your salary come out of that, or does your salary come out of profitability afterwards? There are so many facets of business and so many things for you to learn that for a lot of people, it would be far more advisable to stay in the company that you already work with the boss that you like. You're the highest in the pecking order, so you could very rightly earn operations manager or the 2IC or the general manager. If the person that you're working for has got a vision to scale around the country, then you by very well means, and I've done this with my own team as well, go from working on the tools to working in management to project management to being a director of a certain state. I think you should really consider what you want to achieve, who you want to be, what are the real things that you would like to get out of life, and whether that, in order to achieve those, it is a requirement to do it yourself, or whether they can be achieved with a lot less friction by joining or staying with somebody who is already on that path.
It's your whys around like you said, the initial example of, I can earn more if I do it for myself based on an hourly rate, is very much, well, clearly money's your driver.
It's first principles too.
Like it's like if I look at internally, I go, I want to run my own business, I want to do this, da 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 da. It's not because my first thought is not, wow, I'm going to make so much more than if I worked a job for someone else. It's so much more than that. Like, I just love it. Like, it's genuinely, you go there and I'm like, I love the challenge. I love the running around doing all these different things. But like, as I spoke with Jack, like there are still roles of being an entrepreneur. Like that can happen still within a business, in a leadership role. But, and I think it's really unraveling the why behind you want to be an entrepreneur. Is it because it's some wanky bro Instagram, flashy Lambo sort of lifestyle as well? Yeah, probably don't do it. Like it's not even don't do it, but reassess, look into it a bit more, and you might ask yourself, it's like with clients, ask yourself why 5 times, and you actually might find yourself at the root cause of this. So weight loss is an example. You come in and you go, I want to lose weight. Why? Well, I'm just not comfortable with my body. Why? I think my partner looks at me like in the way that I'm not really happy with. We always have to have the lights off. Okay. That's a little bit deeper. It took us 3. Well done. It's a little bit deeper as to why. Do the same thing for why you want to go into business, why it's a better option than working for someone else, and reassess from there.
Exactly. Absolutely. I think that's sound advice. Think about what you really want to achieve before you bark down the path of, okay, the second and third order consequences of what happens within your life if you go down the business ownership path or the small business route. The vast majority don't succeed. I think everybody knows that. That's within the first year. Even then, the vast majority of those, and I don't want to state statistics because I don't know, but let's just say the vast majority of people don't make it in the first year. Even a smaller percentage of that group don't make it past 5 years, and then so on past 10 years.
Let alone make money. That's not even, that's just saying you're alive.
Let's say it's going to take you a certain amount of capital to set it up, whether that's 50, 30, whether it's $100,000 to get up and moving. So you will need some kind of capital unless you're going to run it from the ground. I started with $300. It's a lot slower burn. You are most likely not going to make any money, regardless of whether you're in tech, software, SaaS, service, product, for like the first 3 years. Then after that, you might take a mediocre salary with a little bit of dividends to top up. Then a few more years of working really significant hours, and it's not necessarily attendance-based hours, but it is thought capacity or mental calorie burn hours.
Business is very mentally draining.
Yep.
Lay on the pillow, it's like, oh, fuck,
3 o'clock in the morning,
fucking
sitting
going.
there thinking, how can I improve that service delivery? How can I improve that client? Taking notes, all of those kind of things. Stopping it. I leave a whiteboard marker in the shower because things just magically come to you while you're not stimulated by anything else. And I like to write down on the shower screen what I was thinking so I can come back to it later.
Shows the importance of giving yourself time to think as well, though, the creative time frame as an entrepreneur.
But some people don't care much for that amount of focus or that cognitive load. So there are other ways, including doing the 5 whys or 7 whys or whatever framework to get down to the root cause of what you want to achieve. You could do that activity. You could also do a personality test to find out whether you are not genetically disposed, but your character profile tends to push you towards leadership roles, or whether you do work better as a leader, a manager, or a doer. You could also read a book called Rocket Fuel, which may push you into the direction of whether you're a visionary or an integrator, to see whether you would be better off being the figurehead, the public figure of the business, the leader, the entrepreneur, or whether you would be better off joining forces with somebody who is that person so that you can be the doer as opposed to the beer. There are a bunch of ways that you can find out whether you would like to get into business as opposed to just jumping in and being a wantrepreneur.
Do you think more people actually know the answer to a lot of those questions before, like in general, than they realize? Like maybe not at 18, but let's say you're 25, still pretty young. I'm 23. I've tried a lot, yes, but I kind of have a pretty good understanding. I love teaching. I love being a leader. All these little tendencies you start to pick up over time. You're like, yeah, I've probably got a fairly good idea of the sort of roles I want to find myself in. People just kind of try and tell themselves, no, I'll be an entrepreneur because that's cool, or as an example, rather than just being like, actually, no. Like,
yeah, and I think even to tell yourself that I want to be an entrepreneur, I don't particularly like the term, but tell yourself that I want to run my own business or work for myself or whatever that phrase is, I think it's overly simplistic to think just that. That would be like saying, I am going to be a professional.
In? Yeah.
Sport,
layer,
law.
Yeah.
To say every business has a business leader, every business was founded and started by somebody. To say that just alone, I want to run my own business, you're flawed from the start.
It's like, I want to run my own business because there's a problem I want to see, I want to solve. I have a really strong passion for solving that problem, or I really want my family life to be like this. And I feel like, based on asking myself why 100 times, I've come to the conclusion that this is the best option for the lifestyle I want. I get that life and I go, oh shit, wasn't what I thought it would be. Continue to go again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Making sure that you're learning along the way, taking as many lessons as you can, not getting too shook by the setbacks as well. Whether that is through an employee basis or an employer basis. So keep on learning, keep on sharpening the axe.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels very lonely on either side. Sometimes you feel very underappreciated. I do find it very helpful to take a little bit of time for yourself, whether that is through journaling or some form of just even walking if you don't want to get into the full woohoo rah-rah journaling and mindset side of things. Know that, if you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling a little bit trapped or whatever it is, underappreciated, maybe you're going to set aside 1 hour on Thursday afternoon to go and take a walk.
Yeah.
Just set aside some time to think so that you can run through those frameworks. We don't have to be as detailed, but it's always good to give yourself time to think about what you really want to do.
What are some of those things that you do personally on a daily or weekly basis? Like we said before, not meaning this will equal scale of success in business.
Disclaimer,
it's just,
there is no correlation between what I do and your success.
There's plenty of fat, unhealthy people that get on the piss and still do well in business.
Exactly.
But it's also not saying you should probably do that either. But yeah.
Exactly. Yes. There are so to find out, to answer the things that I do at the moment, we have to step back and go, how do I establish what are the kinds of things that I should do? And the things we're talking about are, biohacking tactics, things that you can do to increase your personal performance, your way of life, your mood, your mindset. Going back, I've done things like blood tests. I've done things like what are they, like genetic tests, all of those kind of screens per se, to try and get a better understanding of the data of myself as opposed to my opinion of myself. Upon finding out a lot of those things and reflecting on the way I like to do things and the reason that I do things, I found out that I run in surges. What I mean by that is I can work for 3 weeks pretty heavily, probably more than most, but I also get to a point where I do need some time to recharge, some time to reflect, some alone time, in which case it only takes me, a day or two to pick that up, and then I can start again and surge again. So that's one element that I know about myself. Another element that I know about myself is that I'm a dopamine addict. That come about after years of analysis of heavy alcohol consumption. That would then lead to drugs, cigarettes, anything else that would provide a dopamine spike. I went to the other extreme example and went, okay, well, dopamine spikes come from, those kind of activities. Dopamine spikes also come from things like ice bathing and working out and particular workouts and CrossFit and HIIT and all of those elements. Went deep into those, became an ice bather every day. Fundamentally, that didn't make me any more or less successful.
About that.
Just adding that disclaimer alert, ice bath won't make you any less of an asshole.
Yeah.
So understanding what you are trying to achieve and then bringing in some tactics and objectives in order to achieve that better. So for my example, I like my body and my brain needs a certain amount of dopamine per day in order to feel like I have achieved what I need to achieve. So I try and derive some from delivering work with clients in a one-to-one basis. I try and derive some from an evening sauna occasionally. I try to, get in some kind of cold immersion a couple times a week, and I try to do some combat sports through jiu-jitsu, or I try to do some kind of working out at least 5 to 7 days per week. I know that adding those in at whatever times or periods they are throughout a weekly basis, I can balance my innate need for dopamine.
So you've kind of refueled that into a healthier type of dopamine as per se, but understanding that you probably can't go as unhealthy as drugs, alcohol, all that sort of stuff with dopamine, but there is a level where if you over obsess and like we said, you start to think that this will equal success or growth in business. Well, now it's become a negative to if that's your metric that you're measuring. You're doing these things for business success, and now you're actually not doing much work because you have an hour and a half morning routine. You're tired after doing that.
Yep.
Well, now you've just worked backwards.
Well, it leads back to that phrase of mental masturbation, where you have a list of things that you do that takes 1 to 2 hours in the morning, which are not doing the thing. So effectively, you've spent the first couple hours of your day not doing the thing, prepping to do the thing, and never actually got the thing done. So I like to think about, if you're going down the self-improvement path, looking at things based on, will this improve, and what is the reason for this to improve? What is the time and cost outlay of doing this activity? Is there a better, cheaper, faster, more efficient way to do that? And then also remembering that there's a law of diminishing returns, where just because you saunaed once and you felt great, or just because you ice bathed once and felt great, or just because you worked out once and felt great, doesn't mean that if you do that 3 times per day, it will have an equal effect.
That was good. I like that.
I'm very cautious not to say I wake up, I take a certain amount of supplements. This is my supplement stack. These are my macros. This is my workout regime, because that is tailored specifically for me, and whatever you do is for you, and whatever I do is for me.
No, it's refreshing because it's and when I'm taking all these things down, I'm being very careful on how I approach them and whatever. And it's I'm very similar in your mindset around those things. I love that fitness is trendy. I love you got an Oura ring on. I love that people are wearing Whoop bands and all this, but you still got to do the fucking work. That an ice bath doesn't put pen to paper. I think Cow last week, he was his MMA coach said, it's words don't cook rice. You got to fucking do it. And so people, they'll jump on Instagram, ice bath this morning, went for a run, 12 o'clock. Now I'm having lunch. I'm like, yet you've done nothing.
Yes.
Fun
It's
fact.
a really cool lifestyle if that's what you're into.
Yeah. Look, if you don't plan on growing a business, maybe you're at the other end and you're able to now dedicate more time. And that's where I think you mentioned Simon Beard before, someone like that, looking at a guy who sold Culture Kings for an enormous amount, hundreds of millions of dollars. You can start to try and replicate his lifestyle. That's not what got him to the success that he had.
Exactly.
And so a lot of these guys, I'm not saying him specifically, but there's a lot of guys that they're now really successful and they're like, you just got to really enjoy your life, take your weekends, do all this. I'm like, motherfucker, you didn't do that to get where you are. Like
Horses for courses.
What the hell? Like,
exactly.
And you just got to be really careful of that. But I wanted to transition into, so now being a father of two, like we mentioned earlier, how have some of your core values changed? Because everyone says that is one of the biggest turning points in values of their life. And you mentioned it as well. 20s is for going, it's for doing for the big things. 30s, you start to kind of think about kids, or you've got kids already. How has that changed things for you?
I like what you said there. 30s is for going. 20s is for going and doing. Let's say your 20s are for doing, your 30s are for being, and your 40s will get to that at episode 345.
Got a few more years to go.
Yeah, I've got 7 years to get there. So I can't speculate on that. I do think that there is a massive value shift that happens outside of your control when you are expecting or you do have children. It goes from the 20s mindset of I want to... We frame it in a warrior mindset. I will go hunt, kill, do everything that needs to be done for hypothetical tribe. Once you do have the tribe come and you are the protector and provider of your tribe, your family, your children, your internal appetite for risk changes because you are no longer invincible. You do have to be there. A great example for me is I did and still do enjoy riding dirt bikes. However, my appetite and frequency at which I do that activity has reduced significantly since the children have arrived. That's a nice example of how your values may change. It is also quite important to stay, I don't want to say stay true to your values, but stay aware of what you do for you as one entity versus what you do for your family as another entity versus what you do for your relationship as a third entity. So when you're thinking about having more dependence and your family tribe, there are kind of three components there that do all need different attention, different values, and different energy.
Is that why the importance of trying to encourage people in the 20s to go out there, to try, to explore, to gain knowledge, to I don't want to say save money, but it's probably a good idea to start doing that. But like, you don't want to, if you're fresh 20, don't go like, I'm going to save every dollar. It's like kind of reinvest to grow.
Yep.
That's why that's super, super important, and why you encourage people to start to do that, because come kids, you're probably going to pull back a little bit in terms of the risk factor, like you said.
Yeah,
like
and your flexibility of time changes drastically as well, which does cause the value shift and the priority shift, and then in turn comes the value shift. I had an interesting question get posed to me late last week. A guy was saying, and he's in his 20s, a guy was saying, when should I take holidays and weekends? Because the framework of the context was he feels guilty when he's not at work, but he's also cautious about kind of the popularized themes of like burning out and overworking and looking unpopular or not being social within his community and group of friends. So essentially he was saying, how much should I work, and kind of what kind of frameworks can I include to understand whether I'm working enough and give myself approval or permission to then enjoy myself on the weekend. Essentially, he was saying, should I work Monday to Friday and have my weekends off? My answer was, I believe that having your weekends or your time free prior to children to work as hard as you can is a privilege. And you should use that privilege as much as you can. The only times that, and we're talking from a business leader perspective here, so a self-employed person, the only times that you should be taking holidays or weekends or time off is when you need it, because you are in control of your own life and your own time. What I mean by that is there is no need for you to consider a Monday and a Friday. They're not the start of the week and the end of the week. The work needs to be done regardless. However, you may understand that you work best, and I've got a very good friend who works like this. He works 5 till 12, so 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. He works effectively half a day, 7 days a week, because he knows that his best output's done in the morning. He kind of his brain turns into a different kind of energy or wavelength in the afternoon, which he enjoys going to the gym, working out, hanging out with friends, being social. He spends his afternoons every day of the week being social. That is a great way for him to be able to get a massive amount of effective hours out every day. What I'm getting to is that once children come along, there are certain social conformities in which children need to play in. Children need to go to daycare for some kind of socialization, whether that daycare is a government structured program, whether that's the privatized programs, or whether that's a homeschool program. I don't care. I've got no I don't care what you do, as long as your children get to socialize with other children. But there are certain things where your time is now dictated by your your priorities, or your the people that you are responsible for. So in your 20s, devise a day, week, time frame where you can do your absolute best output, optimize your day or your time for your best output, and rest when you need rest.
I think it's really powerful, especially because to the point of, say, like the ice bars and stuff, everyone posts that on your story. It's the same, like, I posted, I got up at fucking 4:30 this morning. It's like, congratulations, you stopped, you had a shit day. Like, it doesn't mean you had a good day, like, versus maybe someone's like, woke up at 9:30, but I kept working till 10 at night, felt really good, had a good day. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like, it's finding, and that's part of, in your 20s, that's what you're trying to figure out, is what kind of works best for you. And then, like you said, you've now created for yourself a really well-structured routine within, obviously, the balance of children and work. That there's still some up and downs there, but it find what works for you. Don't just listen to what you should be doing because of social media and things like that as well. Like, it's very easy to get swept up in, no, I have to get up at 5 a.m. It's like, well, not if you don't work well at like 5 a.m. or not if you finish work at 11 o'clock at night. Like, it's, get some sleep, like, if you can. It's probably a good idea.
There's also just to counter to, not to punk the game at all, a couple nights of lost sleep or a couple nights of less sleep due to delivering a great amount of output at work will not kill you.
No.
You'll never know the couple minutes you took off the end of your life. Going to festivals for 72 hours, not eating any food, drinking any water, and shelving a lot of ecstasy tablets is probably not a responsible way to lose an amount of sleep. But if you're in a great flow state doing a fantastic amount of work, it gets to 11, 12 p.m., 1 a.m., you may decide to continue and push and get that output, knowing that it comes at the sacrifice of your ideal 8 hours of sleep, which you record on your Oura Ring. You are taking some amount of sacrifice in order to achieve for the greater good, because you're in your 20s and you have the privilege to be able to work as much as you can.
It's more or less
work hard.
The repetitive stuff. If you're 5 hours of sleep every night, then you start to go, it's not ideal.
Exactly.
But
start looking after your health. If you drive yourself into some form of disease-ridden state. If you give yourself a heart attack, a good friend of mine had a heart attack in his early 20s due to overwork and overstress and a highly caffeinated lifestyle. Maybe don't push yourself that hard, but he also now knows exactly where his limit is, and it is far beyond where anybody else is capable of reaching. So work hard, no one cares. Don't post it on social media.
So if anyone puts up an ice bath at 5 o'clock in the morning, go fuck yourself.
Exactly.
Something along those lines.
Or just I hope you had a really great day.
It doesn't define whether you're doing anything special within that day either.
Exactly.
Back to the point of then children. We mentioned before that we would dive into masculinity a little bit, which is an interesting topic. Like, I think it's one that needs to be spoken about more, because there's a lot. As a young male, I open up social media and I start to go, well, I kind of feel like you shouldn't be a man, you shouldn't be masculine, or it maybe things are trying to redefine what that should be. As someone like one of your kids is obviously a young boy, and so he's going to grow up and be a very strong man. What's your take on masculinity? What are some things you're trying to think about? I don't know, early day fatherhood still, but do you want to instill value-wise in your son?
Can we please... because I know can we please note that question? I want to touch on something that is that's interesting, and I'd like your feedback on it as well. I'm thinking of it as some kind of algorithm extremism. And what I mean by that is the algorithms and the social media, the areas that we play and the information that's given to us across various platforms through our phone, our laptop, and our TV is feeding us the information for which the algorithm believes we want to see. And then because we see more of it, in turn, we are given more of it. Take, for example, us being young men, and even, Andrew Tate or anybody else that's in the kind of more, not extreme masculinity, but people who are talking about that, we are then fed more information based on that. Then we are consuming more information based on that. Then we are led to believe that that is in turn its own crisis because we're not given the plethora of other information to equalize.
But if you shut off the phone
messaging
and walk outside, it doesn't happen as much.
Exactly. So what I'm thinking is algorithm extremism, coining the term, is the trajectory for society going into positioning everybody in their own extreme algorithm states, whereby we are creating a civil conflict within each other based on everybody's specific algorithm buckets.
I think, yeah. And
what do we think?
I love it. It's perfect. No, and it's because like working with a lot of like face-to-face PT still, you have these conversations on a day-to-day basis. Someone's like, oh, I saw this on da-da-da, or I'm in the gym, and it fucking pisses me off that they even have the news on in the gym. I understand people want to know. I'm like, it's sad when something bad happens to someone in Queensland. I live in Adelaide. Like, and so like we're also on the same level of we're shown all these things that are, like you said, to the masculinity point, but then I'm also shown all these terrible events in the whole world. If I wouldn't have a clue that they're even a thing. So I start to worry about them. I was, oh, that's terrible. Like, it must be a terrible place to live. Or like, you don't go to America and everyone's getting shot, but on the news in Australia, all you see is people in America getting shot. Like it's so you're a very narrow perception of a situation or a place as well.
You're given specific information as opposed to what is happening as a greater good or as a wider population. I wonder whether, ourselves included and everybody listening, whether we should and could have an activity where we're listening to a conversation, it goes down a particular path or there is a theme to it. Whether we think of, putting a mental framework around, I wonder what this person's extreme algorithm is, and I wonder what information they are taking from their extreme algorithm in order to provide the backing for this conversation. And is this something that they genuinely believe, or is this something that they've not been manipulated to believe? It's something that they've been given a vast majority of information on a single bias side of the conversation.
So when we've both got our Apple Vision Pros on and we're having the conversation on the side here, it says, this is Sam's algorithm, the stuff he gets fed on social media. I'm like, that's why he's the way he is. Like,
yes, exactly.
And then tomorrow he's changed because he looked at one video of a dog and then it's like gone. So, but another thing, well, that's the rise in Australia. Who the fuck ever said left and right wing?
I don't even know the difference between the two, just because it's something that I don't care about and I don't have a affinity to, and my algorithm doesn't educate me on it.
Like, I genuinely had no idea until COVID. Spend a bit more time on your phone. Maybe some PT clients start talking about it as well, and now I start to feel like everyone say, "Oh, the left is woke and the right just want to kill everyone and the extremists and da da da." Like, I'm like, I'd never heard of that in Australia. It's probably more an American term, but the more people get on social media, and for the same thing, if you shut that off, you wouldn't realize it either. Like, it doesn't really impact you. Now, to the masculinity point, that maybe shutting it off maybe won't, like, it's not, let's look even deeper than social media. It's not just about what's portrayed on social media. It's a hot topic, but it is an important thing because people are on social media.
Yeah. That's, I'll unpack my ideas. I'll just blurt out some information on masculinity from my perspective. I think that a fun exercise is to look at the household that you're raised in, whether it's good, bad, happy, or sad. Look at the let's segment them into blue and pink jobs, and kind of what parent, whether male or female, male, whatever the household structure was. Where were the pink jobs? Where were the blue jobs? And what information did you absorb as a child based on potentially who should do the blue jobs and the pink jobs? Because that's then how you will portray your mental framework or your ideology of how you think a household should run. So say your dad was somebody who cooked the dinner and you didn't particularly like the food that he cooked, you may then come into your own family household thinking that the woman should cook the dinner because, and you may not be aware of it, but because in your childhood your dad cooked the dinner and you didn't particularly like it, so now you believe that the woman should cook the dinner because the dinner could be done better. So as far as masculinity goes, I was raised in a household where blue and pink jobs were quite mixed, as in mum would work and dad would work as well, and they would alternate. So dual working household meant that blue jobs and pink jobs were not blue jobs and pink jobs. Going into my household now, I quite like the idea of blue jobs and pink jobs, whereas I'm happy to, handle the gardens and, the finances of the household. I'm happy to go out and do the, warrior components of, hunter-gathering type thing. I love the idea of having pink jobs as well, not in a traditional, like I get home from work at 5 o'clock and dinner must be on the table type aspect, just in a, it makes me feel appreciated to know that some of the pink jobs are not my responsibility. So where we're getting to with masculinity and femininity is, I think that doing a lot of introspective work about understanding what you like and what your household was like, or your family household was like when you were a child, helps you understand potentially what kind of household you would like to raise for your own family, and then engaging in those conversations with your partner or future partner or somebody you see being the mother of your children as to, in future, I see this being how our household might look. I see this being some of the jobs that I might do and some of the jobs that you may do. And is there some conflict here? And, you may not be, you may be great at cooking and preparing and, the nutritional balance of the food that you like to do. However, intrinsically, you're not motivated to cook dinner because you believe you could outsource it because you make a certain amount of hourly rate in your own business. And you believe that the value would actually be better if your partner would cook the dinner, because then you, jumping into kind of love languages, knowing that you like acts of service that would then fulfill that component with bringing in many personal models of things that I would like, things that make me feel better, having those conversations with your partner about also what their side of their journey and their life is, and then bringing it together.
So once again, it's an individual approach. Like
it depends.
I'm gonna snap this fucking microphone. No, I do love the saying it depends as well. And I think that's accepting others and their relationships as well. Like if that's what works for them, stop stepping on their toes. Like it's like how many people, like it's almost, once again, social media perception is, oh no, you can't have like a male that gets the bread and then the wife does the cooking and the cleaning anymore. It's like, what if they're both happy doing that, and vice versa? What if the dude's like, fuck yeah, I love cleaning, like I want to do that, I love taking the kids to school and all this, and it's like, if that genuinely fulfills both parties, what problem do you have? Like it's
and they don't have to be blue and pink jobs. I just like it because it's coloring and it helps my little brain work things out.
People get it.
You can also create some amounts of polarity within your own relationship by having blue and pink jobs, or whatever your specific framework is, and the polarity would then keep you guys interested with a little bit of, maybe not friction, but a little bit of different energies and different experiences throughout the household position in order to fundamentally maintain a healthy and happy and loving marriage for as long as humanly possible.
And I think on an individual level, outside of relationship, I think it's powerful for young males, it's okay to be a bit of a savage. Like like you said, 20s, put your head down, do the work, get shit done, make some money, learn new things, meet lots of people, network, figure out what you do and don't want to do. Like that's okay too. Like it's, and then when it comes to relationships, everything we just said then is just perfect. Like
excellent.
Figure out what works.
Maybe for the younger guys as well, who I often think about how I would not want to be in this position now that I have a loving wife and children. I would not want to be a single male these days, having to go out. It was equally as difficult when we were young as well, when I was young. But to be able to go out and try and find who is going to be the mother of my children, I want to pose to you that at the moment you've got plenty of time to think and make your decisions. You've got plenty of time to try before you buy. if you know what I'm talking about. But also try to think about things in a framework of, would this person be a good mother for my children? Would this person hold a certain amount of growth for me? Does this person want to be able to grow as well if those are kind of things that you value? Can I see our future timeline at 40? Who is this person going to be? Who am I going to be? Are we going to be still on the same growth trajectory? Because growth is a big thing that can segment people very differently in massively different directions. Then going out, instead of looking for somebody, you know, with tattoos, blonde hair, big tits, looking for somebody who is nurturing and mothering, who has a certain makeup of characteristics in which holds their energy up, so that you can see you guys being on a similar trajectory into the future.
What could other young men do you think, to get themselves on that level, to actually think like that as well? Like, to see, like, it's, you, like you said, you like to party when you were younger, drinking, all those sort of things. How do you get yourself on that path of being like, because, you know, you could want all these things, all good and well, and you're an absolute right old mess yourself. She's probably, that ideal woman, probably not going to go for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a certain amount of maturity and straightening from the party scene that comes as you get a little bit older. Your affinity for different kinds of information will change as well, going from just looking at information on TikTok to I wonder what Sam said about love languages, and then going and reading the book about love languages, because your interest and energy and attention is now going towards finding the future mother of your children. So going down paths like that of understanding different frameworks about relationships, masculine and feminine energies, and, you know, any of the books around that area is going to give you a better understanding of who you are, a better understanding of potentially who you would like to bring into your life as well. And by doing that, if you're a mature masculine man at any age that is comfortable enough to buy and consume a book on love languages, then you are going to be inherently attracting the right person for you.
Which is, I think, a lot of blokes go, no, it's weak, it's this,
Fuck
it's that. It's not about, like, you can still. That's why, like, when you see, you know, if anyone ever says, like, it's, you know, men should be weaker, there should be this, it's like, no. Men should be. It's okay to be a bit vulnerable. You should still want to be strong. You should still want to be all of those things, but being vulnerable and stepping into some of these things as well is okay. Like, it's not, you're not old school man, like, no, I'm not doing that. It's fucking, that's not tough enough. Like, I just want to punch everyone. It's like,
Yeah.
don't be like that. You know?
And not everyone can be the alpha. Not everyone wants to be a beta. Not everyone wants to be a leader. Not everybody wants to be a part of a team. Everybody's different. So do a lot of work on yourself. There's heaps of people out there that can either educate you in that or provide you with the short form content to tell you what type of long form content you need to consume in order to understand more about yourself, to find out where you sit on every one of those different spectrums. And yeah, attract the person that is right for you.
How do you deal with tall poppy syndrome in a place like Adelaide? Is it real?
It's internal as well. Pardon me. I dislike it. There's an extreme example where you go to the Gold Coast where tall poppy is almost flipped on its head, where the tallest poppy, where the shortest poppy gets shot down or cut down.
So, like, if you're not doing these business, if you're not going for it,
if you're not flashy, you're no one.
Yeah.
Coming back to Adelaide, it's a fine line. There are people who are always going to criticize you at any level of anything you're doing. Fundamentally, it's important to remember that criticism only comes from people below you, not people above you. So if you are criticized by somebody, it gives you the opportunity to just think about a potential social hierarchy in which you now sit above them. So take it as a compliment. Usually it's just a reflection of their own insecurity anyway.
So it's like from a place of jealousy almost. It's like if someone perceives, if you can genuinely be like, no, I'm not an arrogant prick, then maybe the person calling you an arrogant prick is just jealous that you have a level of confidence that they don't have.
Exactly. And if you've proved to yourself through your work deliverables or whichever way you measure your success that you are who you say you are, and this is not like it doesn't just happen overnight. It's a sliding scale of progression throughout maturity and also achievement in whichever way you measure that. It becomes a lot easier to shrug off the criticism and not let it get to you. But also, if you're going to, let's just jump to the other side, if you're going to put yourself out there, telling the world per se, or showing the world that you are somebody that you are not, and you receive the criticism for it, and it really hurts, it is no doubt because there is a discrepancy between who the profile is that you've built versus who you actually are, and is there an equal amount of level and effort that has been put in to achieve those in an equilibrium, or is one, are you pretending to be somebody that you're not, and you're getting the criticism and it is burning you alive? So,
which is an opportunity to do something about it.
Exactly.
If you're butt hurt by a comment, it might be true.
Pull back from that side,
Learn
increase
from it.
your work and output and deliveries in whichever way you measure that. And put yourself out there again, because then you'll have the backing behind it.
Perfect. I might wrap things up there. That's been a really amazing podcast. So for anyone that wants to work with Sam, all his information will be in the description below for Alpha Tradie. So if you're a tradie looking to scale your business, it's the place to be. Excellent. Thank you, Sam.
Cheers.